Presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden out on this Memorial Day, making his first in-person appearance since mid-March to lay a wreath at the Delaware Veterans Memorial Park near Wilmington. The former VP is still dealing with the fallout over his comments about black voters in a radio interview that aired Friday morning. Peter Ducey is live with more on the 2020 race. Hey, Peter.
Arthel, it had been 10 and a half weeks since the last time that we saw Joe Biden in person for a speech in Wilmington about COVID-19. Fast forward to this morning, the end of May, Biden and his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, emerged for the first time this cycle. We got to see him with a full Secret Service detail. Both of them had thick black masks that made it really hard to make out what he was saying. But we did catch this. He said, quote, "Never forget the sacrifices that these men and women made. Never, ever forget." The two of them laid a wreath at the Veterans Park at the Delaware Memorial Bridge near the house where he has been quarantining. And they did speak to two local officials there from a safe social distance. But we have no idea when the next time we will see him, not on Zoom, is going to be. Arthel.
Let's go to President Trump and his apparently threatening to move the Republican convention this summer. Tell us about that, Peter.
Yeah, because he thinks that the Democratic governor of the state that wants to host the Republican convention might not have things opened up soon enough. So he tweeted this in part: "I love the great state of North Carolina so much that I insisted on having the Republican National Convention in Charlotte at the end of August. Unfortunately, Democrat Governor Roy Cooper is still in shutdown mode and unable to guarantee that by August we will be allowed full attendance in the arena. In other words, we would be spending millions of dollars building the arena to a very high standard without even knowing if the Democrat governor would allow the Republican Party to fully occupy the space." And his vice president has now elaborated on that.
We look forward to working with Governor Cooper, getting a swift response, and if needs be, moving the national convention to a state that is farther along on reopening and can say with confidence that we can gather there.
A spokesman for the Democratic governor, Cooper, now says state health officials are working with the RNC and will review its plans as they make decisions about how to hold the convention in Charlotte. North Carolina is relying on data and science to protect our state's public health and safety. And the president is not yet hinting what state he might move it to, but the New York Times is reporting that he has been musing about possibly hosting it at a ballroom in Florida. Arthel.
Wow, this is so intriguing because the thing about the virus is that it's everywhere. So hopefully we can find a safe space where everybody can get their jobs done and to be safe at the same time. Peter Ducey, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you. All right, Leland.
All right, we bring in our political panel. Chris Wilson, GOP pollster, who worked on Senator Ted Cruz's 2016 presidential campaign, and former Ohio Senate Minority Leader Capri Cafaro. Nice to see both of you. Chris, to you, you take this as a real threat, or is the president and VP and the RNC posturing a little bit here to try and box Cooper in?
No, I think it's absolutely a real threat. And I think it's amazing that Roy Cooper is willing to risk chasing the Republican convention out of his state just because he wants to be in control of what people can do. And the convention would be a huge economic boost to the city of Charlotte, to the state of North Carolina. And losing it is going to have the damage of thousands in the hotel, restaurant, and events business. I mean, my bar tab alone probably keep 3 or 4 people employed for the year. But you know what's really shocking about this and Cooper's response, and as you just read off, as we're seeing across the country, these lockdowns have long since moved beyond flattening the curve or caution-based or science-based caution. I live in Oklahoma, where we pretty much moved on from it, and you're seeing the numbers continue to drop. And you look at Texas, you look at Florida, you look at Georgia, all Chris, opportunities and options.
Let me bring Capri in on this because you bring up an interesting point. Sure. Let's look at this totally from a political standpoint. In the most Machiavellian sense, Trump won North Carolina by only a couple of points. There's a reason he's having the convention in North Carolina, which is right. It conceivably has some good help and effects come November. There was a reason, for example, that President Obama had the 2008 convention in Denver, Colorado. So in a way, is it better for Roy Cooper?
The same thing goes for the DNC in Milwaukee this year.
Right. So if the DNC in Milwaukee even happens, but is Roy Cooper perhaps playing politics with this on the other side? Is that running the DNC out of, or the RNC out of North Carolina perhaps a good thing for Democrats?
I don't think it's a good thing for Democrats because I don't think it's a good thing for North Carolina because, as my colleague on the panel just said, this has a direct economic impact for the people of Charlotte. I think it's going to be very difficult from a logistical standpoint to move this convention from Charlotte because it takes so much time and effort to plan these conventions. I know this from when the RNC was in Cleveland 4 years ago, and I'm a Democrat. This is something that has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with economic development and showcasing the state. I don't think it's good politics, but I do think that it's important to make sure that stringent health measures are adhered to. I mean, you're dealing with 50, 60,000 people in an enclosed space. This is serious. And look, my mother is a delegate to the Republican National Convention. So I'm concerned for her and I'm concerned for others. I don't know any place in the country that is allowing that large scale of an event. But I have faith both in North Carolina and the RNC to come to a resolve.
All right, I want to get now to the issue that Peter Doocy first talked about, Joe Biden's comments to Charlemagne the God. This is from the New York Post, Miranda Devine, in a column saying that this was a deplorable moment for Joe Biden. Biden's internal filter has always been faulty, but lately it has deserted him entirely. His latest id explosion narrows his options for a running mate after he already locked himself into choosing a woman. Now, as Charlemagne says, the only way to atone is to choose a black woman. Capri, is it that cut and dry?
I don't think so. I mean, number one, look, let me just say this. I think everybody agrees that what Vice President Biden said was pretty cringeworthy. I think that, it may be enough to get some African Americans to sit at home. And frankly, I think that while Vice President Biden has not had an opportunity to really be out on the campaign trail, it might be a good thing because we are avoiding some of these gaffes. I don't think it's all about identity politics. Who knows? I frankly also don't think that a running mate makes that big of a difference in the scheme of things. The Veep stakes always becomes a big deal. But I don't see people voting for president.
It made a very big deal for John McCain picking Sarah Palin. Chris, to you on this. The Trump campaign seems to really think they can capitalize on this and bring over African-American voters. Is this a big enough of a gaffe for that opening to really be meaningful 8 months from now or 5 months from now?
Well, I certainly agree with Capri that it's better off for the Biden campaign the longer he stays holed up in his basement. But can it be capitalized on? The Biden statement is right along the lines with what he said in 2012, that put you back in chains. And I do think what Biden is doing is he's potentially making himself the yes, but candidate. Yes, I agree with or believe Tara Reid, but I'll still go vote for him. Yes, he makes racist and very demeaning comments about African Americans, but I'll still vote for him. At some point, that yes, but becomes no. And I don't know that he's reached it yet, but he gets closer every time he opens his mouth.
Chris, Capri, appreciate it. Take care, guys.